Coming to you live from 2021, it's the 10 Point Podcast. My name is Bruce, and welcome to a very timely celebration of all the films that came out in the year 2021. I'm sure you've been waiting. You've had your Christmas dinner. It's almost New Year's. You can't wait to hear what the best of this year was, and we're about to list them for you. With me, as normal, they both play the same character as me, but in different universes. It's Chris and Andy. No fancy introductions for this one here. I'm sure you get my 20.
Sounds like you just wrote that in like 30 seconds.
I just came up with that now and then gave up because we had to start recording. Yeah, this is how this podcast flows. We are the 10 Point Podcast. You can find us wherever you get podcasts, and where you can find us on YouTube as well. YouTube channel 10 Point Podcast. Over there, we can get video versions of every episode that we do. This is a very special bonus extra one. This is coming in between the end of our season 5 and prior to our season 5 awards ceremony, the 10 Point Podcast Pointy Awards. So at the moment, the Academy is compiling everyone's votes and working out who should win the awards. But we've got a kind of minor. This is kind of like, I don't know what you call it, the Golden Globes to the Oscars of our award ceremonies. It's a minor award ceremony. We give out just one award, but we do a countdown of the top
no less
10.
Important though. It's still important.
No less important. But a top 10 that for the second year in a row contains 11 films, because we seem to have this ability in our nominations of only coming up with 11 films, no fewer, no greater. It's always 11.
Was it 11 last year as well?
11 last year as well. I think we had joint 10th last year, and we've got joint 9th this time. So all three of us have.
I'm also starting to panic with one of my picks. I think it might be this year.
All right. I actually didn't really double check anyone. Nothing stood out to me as being the wrong year necessarily. All three of us entered our top 5s, and I put it together and concocted a sort of which one would be the best if you added all three lists together. So
I like the not knowing.
There is a clear winner. There is a winner. It is the only one that was on all three of our lists, and it is the winner. That's how we managed to pick 11 different films, because the three of us. I think only 3 films appeared on more than one person's list, so there's a lot of swimming through to do. If you guys don't mind, I forgot to warn you beforehand. Have a think and have a listen as we go through. If there's any honourable mentions, but between the second place and the winner, we'll mention any that make your top 5s. So keep an ear out to what has not and has been mentioned. So we'll kick off with joint 9th. There are 3 joint 9ths. Absolute bottom was Chris's number 5. Chris, why don't you tell us what your number 5 was, and I'll explain in a bit why I think it's the absolute number 11 out of 10.
I picked the Snyder Cut Justice League because I can't think of many 4-hour films that I can sit through in one sitting and watch.
I put it dead last because it's just a different cut of an older film. So I thought, okay,
it's a better cut, but
undoubtedly, I personally,
I would say it was pretty good, but as long as it wasn't square. I feel like the squareness annoys me.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, that. Was it ever released as like an episodic thing? Because I watched it in one go as a film.
No,
there were rumours that it was because it is chaptered, isn't it? That they were going to release it like that. But 4 hours unnecessarily long. It's kind of, well, if you listen to our last episode we just did, you'll hear me complaining about Star Wars having a similar feeling. The whole thing of the Justice League is destined to amount to absolutely nothing, because this is not where the DC is going with this. So therefore, it's like, oh, this is great, but it doesn't matter. Oh, this is great, but it doesn't matter. Like, there's not going to be another film until, I don't know, DC completely crumbles and they can't come up with anything. I guess they'll get, oh, Zach, can you come and fix it for us again? But yeah, that's my opinion. Is it's a good film, but it was not near my top 5 really.
No.
And Dave, what about you?
Same. It's definitely not near that because it came out about 3 years beforehand. So
basically, when you know what happened, it kind of harms it.
Yeah.
So joint 9th, but actually 10th on our list. And my number 5, one that I was surprised it showed up on nobody else's. I went for the Suicide Squad.
I came close.
Yeah.
It was originally going to be on my list, and I was like, no, my number 5 switched.
Right, okay. Well, we'll come to that in a second. Holds up pretty well. It's one of the ones on my list I've seen twice. I haven't seen many twice, obviously, because they only came out recently, last year, when we were recording. The sheer vast improvement on the first one knocks it up for me. It's far more entertaining, and like interesting. I find the first one just bogged down with stuff I just don't care about. It has aspects that are really good.
And
I
again,
guess
it's Peacemaker.
yeah, Peacemaker came out, but I just only ever watched the first episode of that TV show, and I quite liked it. I just never watched any more. Idris Elba does a way better job than Will Smith did with his character. They're basically the same thing, and I'm assuming Will Smith would have played the same role in that film had he wanted to do it. And then on my rewatch, I found when I first saw it, I was like, they really did just, I don't know, staple a Harley Quinn story onto the side of this film.
Yes.
But on the rewatch, it's not so bad. I was more entertained. I think because I kind of knew what was coming. I wasn't as disappointed by her side of the storyline. But yeah, I think it holds up pretty well, and it's fun, and it gave us some good characters. I liked it. Spoiler alert for a film that came out last year. They kill off everyone they introduced immediately, and then here's another new team. I like that aspect of it. What about you, Chris? Suicide Squad. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I completely forgot all about that. But now you mentioned it, I did like the shark thing. I can't remember what it's called. Hand.
King
King Shark.
King Shark.
It's not Captain Shark. What's his
No.
name? King Shark.
Like
Yeah.
I say, it is a massive improvement in the first one. I was more interested and more invested in this.
I don't know if James Gunn's going to do any more or not, but I very much liked his take on it. His take was far better than whoever it was ended up doing Suicide Squad in the end. I know there was some changes to the first one. Right. Joint ninth, but actually ninth, is Andy's number 5. It's Nobody.
Oh,
Chris's face. I just wait for
that's
that.
my
Oh,
honourable
yeah.
mention.
All right, okay. It's the one film mentioned I have not seen. I have still not seen Nobody yet.
Ah.
So all 11 that were mentioned, I have
See,
not seen it.
The reason why this made it just onto the list and it knocked Suicide Squad off is because it was one of them films that came out right when the pandemic was kicking our ass again. We were all back in lockdown, and then the cinemas had just opened up, and there was this window. I was like, oh, I could go and watch this film, so I went and watched it, and it was just a film out of literally nowhere. I was like, oh, what the fuck, this is a good film. Like, it completely took me aback, and I was just like, this is like John Wick, but like an old man version of John Wick,
That's literally what I was going to say. It's like old man John Wick.
and it's absolutely brilliant.
Yep, it's been on my to-do list since I first heard of it, and I've gone right through it not coming out, then actually coming out, then it making it to streaming, and I've still not seen it yet, or whatever. I don't think it came out to streaming initially, but yeah, it is definitely the top of my to-do list for movies of that year. Okay, that's the tie split then. From now on, everything has its own position. So number 8 on our top 10 of 2021 is Chrissy's number 4.
Yeah, Jungle Cruise.
This was Chris's late amendment. Chris gave his ballot and then changed his mind on it.
I'm panicking because I thought this might come out the 1st of January 2022 now. But I'm not sure now.
I'll have a look. Tell us about Jungle Cruise and why you
Well,
like it.
yeah, it's just some nice family fun. Like, The Rock's bad puns are amazing and still crack me up.
Yeah, I forgot about that aspect of his character, yeah.
And yeah, I just thought it was good fun.
What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I quite liked it as well. I quite like Jack Whitehall.
Oh, yeah.
He's fun. The story's pretty good. And the special effects were pretty well done, and they had a lot of practical sets.
Yeah.
A lot of practical set.
It was Disney Plus straight to, wasn't it? Like, it didn't have a cinematic one, yeah. So I think they were. It's maybe hard. I guess it might have been better as a sort of let's go out to the movies to watch. The end of July 2021 in the UK was its release date.
Oh,
so
okay, good.
I
I
think
thought
that'd
it
be
was
worldwide.
for a while, 1st of January.
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about it, Chris. Yeah, I watched it. It's all right, despite the fact it's got The Rock and Emily Blunt and a couple of the aspects that I would really like. It was, it's just fine. Like, it was on my list of movies I'd seen, and maybe in the running if I'd made a top 10. But yeah, it wasn't ever going to be my top 5. But yeah, it was fine. It's all right. Family movie. I can't remember what you replaced, Chris, but keep it to yourself until we. It might come up later on. I can't remember
It will come up later on.
can't remember what your change was. Right, number 7 in our top 10 was my number 4. And I had to put a film in. I looked at my list. This was on my top 5, but I moved it up one place because I realised every other film on my list was a reboot or a sequel. There had to be one original film. Luckily, number 5 on my list. So I put it to number 4. Is The Tomorrow War. Do you remember, or did you even see The Tomorrow War?
I quite enjoyed it, actually. That was another one of them ones,
isn't it?
That's Chris Pratt. Gets conscripted to go forward through time to fight a war to save the planet and all this.
I remember liking that, actually.
It's no business being as good as it is, really. Yep. It's a terrible action film, and from the point of view of the storyline does not stand up if you actually look at it properly. But I love the start of the story because it does hold up. It's like, oh, this makes sense, and it does go to shit afterwards.
But yeah, the first hour, I was hooked. I was drawn in.
The premise of I think if I remember correctly, it was like during the World Cup final of 2022. I think it was like they come back and they appear to Earth. People of Earth, we're at war 40 years in the future, and I like the idea of like reverse Terminator, rather than coming back to stop the war starting. It's coming back to take people to fight the war in the future. Chris Pratt being more of a kind of just a kind of leading man, just not being too hilarious and too jokey, just being straight and narrow, normal guy quite helped. And then J.K. Simmons being in it with a really small role, but just being J.K. Simmons is always good. But yeah, I had to put it on because I hope they make more, because I couldn't find any evidence of it being a book or anything like that. It's just a guy wrote a script and then it got made into a film. I hope they make kind of more of it, as long as it is good, I would say. But yeah, Tomorrow War, the only film that wasn't a sequel or a reboot that I put on my list. Number 6 in our top 10 is Chris's number 3. Chris, what's your number 3?
I went for Godzilla vs. Kong. Team Godzilla all the way.
I love
a big
Godzilla.
action epic film like that.
I love Godzilla. Everyone knows this. This is not what I want from a Godzilla movie. Whole Earth can get in the bin. I'm done with that stuff.
You don't like Hollow Earth?
Nah, that was just what a detour, waste of time that was. And
I just hated the little girl who could speak monkey. Like, how did that happen?
The best thing to come from this, other than like Kong and Godzilla fighting on the boats near the beginning, I liked that, was the fact that it just did show how much of a bitch Kong is in compared to Godzilla. That he lost to Kong, and then Mechagodzilla got involved, and then he still lost to Godzilla.
So Kong won.
He did not win at all.
I did.
Lost fully.
Are they not supposed to be making another sequel to this?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
They'll make loads of them probably. But I feel like they've gone too far with this Hollow Earth thing now. That's a thing that now exists in Godzilla, and it's like I want that to not exist. Can we not just go back to it being a bit more normal again? But I feel like we've talked over you, Chris. Godzilla. Any more positive thoughts about why?
No, I just like I said, I love the big epic battles with them, and yeah, I'm Team Godzilla all the way.
Yeah,
I love a Godzilla charge noise, so that does work.
And
yeah,
well, it's only counted ahead because of the Call of Duty thing.
Yeah, which too short-lived that was.
Yeah.
Okay, into our top 5 then. Our number 5 movie of all time. This is where someone's not going to enjoy the top 5 very well. Number 5 is Andy's number 2. Andy, why don't you tell us your number 2 is?
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is Andy's number 2. Our number 5. Andy, why don't you tell us about it?
So I picked it because it was either that or Spider-Man, and I decided that Spider-Man actually, on a rewatch, is not as good as Shang-Chi.
Right.
Shang-Chi invested me, and it's probably the last best Marvel thing to happen in a long time, because it's been pretty shit since that came out.
That's when the COVID era MCU, everything kind of gets ruined, kind of timeline
Yes.
and explaining wise. I feel like you, Andy, I limited myself to one MCU movie as well. Not that I would have wanted my top 5 to have 5 MCUs or whatever in it, but I was like, no. So Shang-Chi didn't make the cut. I think that the final bit, I don't know, even the final act, the final end sequence of Shang-Chi really disappointed me. Where they go
I don't mind it.
the mystical world or whatever.
And like Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, I'll explain more of that shit, I reckon.
I think so. It seems to be going that way, yeah. But despite the fact that I don't really know too many people who were in it, like going into Shang-Chi. Everyone was really good in it. A lot of them are Asian actors and actresses that are coming over to Hollywood for one of their first biggest things and all that. But yeah, it's one of those ones that kind of feels a bit samey because everyone's trying to introduce a new character. So everyone has I'm not a superhero. Here's the thing, it makes me a superhero. Oh no, someone I know is actually a baddie, and then they come out the other end of it, and that seems to be the sort of phase we're in with the MCU at the moment.
But it did also fix the Mandarin, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's a good aspect. Oh, of course, and our boy Trevor showed up again.
I just didn't know enough about Shang-Chi to like get as invested as I did about other films.
You're racist.
I'm the same with Miss Marvel and Shang-Chi. To me, I'm new to both of these heroes, having not heard of them before the movie was announced, basically. So it's
same with the series of Moon Knight. I just couldn't give a fuck about that. Wasn't interested.
So it's not a bad film, and it's our number 5. Number 4 on our list is Andy's number 1.
I've seen that coming a mile off.
Yeah, it's just the way it worked, I'm afraid, Andy. Andy's number 1. Why don't you tell us what it is, Andy? Why it's your movie of the year?
Free Guy. It's a cinematic masterpiece. It is literally the best thing to happen. COVID kicked our ass for 2 years, and then Ryan Reynolds came out and brightened the world up, giving every GTA player a film that they really wanted to see about NPCs.
Free Guy was the one I bumped because I couldn't remember much of it.
I'd forgotten that's what it was until I thought about it there. But yeah,
And exactly, this is why you have to rewatch it, because it is a cinematic masterpiece. It's got action, it's got great story, it's got Ryan Reynolds. It's a masterpiece.
I don't know. It is a kernel of an idea that could have been really good, Free Guy. And I feel like it just wasn't particularly what I wanted
It's
from it.
brilliant. It has the best lightsaber Hulk fight ever. It's got Captain America back. He said he'd never do it again. He's
That
back.
was funny.
They did it all.
The best bit of that scene was Chris Evans' reaction to it. The worst thing about that scene was just how it's like, they've had to just shoehorn every property they've got into 30 seconds in this film.
Ryan Reynolds got to play with a lightsaber. That's all that matters. It's got Hugh Jackman in it. It's got everybody.
While it was fun, it didn't make my top 5. Any other thoughts from you, Chris, on Free Guy? Since it nearly made it, it's actually your number 6 movie of the year.
Yeah, I just don't remember much about it to keep it on the list. Like, I did enjoy it, but I couldn't.
You
I can't
rewatch
remember
that.
the end.
This will be number 1 now.
Shoot back up. Okay, then into our top 3 then. Don't worry, Andy, you're still represented. That's not the end of your votes so far. So number 3 is my number 2 and Chris's number 2 as well. So Chris, why don't you tell us what our number 2 was and the number 3 on the list?
Spider-Man: No Way Home. It was just epic. It was good to see like the Spider-Man that I grew up with and Tobey Maguire back. Hasn't lost a beat. And for me, sorry, Andrew, you go.
I would say you're right. This would have took Shang-Chi's place with me. It would have been my number 2 as well, if Marvel could just keep their legs shut and stop spunking their load. Because they ruined every surprise in this thing, and it really knocked me off.
Yeah.
If they just kept their legs shut, kept people wondering what was in between their legs, and then just showed it on in the cinema, it'd been fine.
I miss old school trailers where you got the one trailer and that was it.
Yeah.
No extra
Bring a trailer out.
spoilers or anything.
Yeah, fuck them. And stop having drones flying over sets and fucking big, fat, geeky, sweaty cunts like hacking scripts and shit like that, ruining films. If you're one of these people who are listening to this podcast and you do that, just go jump off a cliff. You're ruining cinema for everybody.
I was never a big Spider-Man.
Andrew, tell how you really feel.
Yeah, I was never a big Spider-Man guy, but I liked what they did with the multiple Spider-Men and kind of making sense of how there can be so many Spider. And also, this was one of the beginnings of the multiverse, which hopefully is going to come good in the end, and this one will actually make a bit more sense when they look back around.
As Andrew Garfield, though, he got the shot he deserved, and I just thought he was the best thing about the film.
He was the best of the 3. I think Tom Holland always gets praise for being the best Spider-Man, but in this one, I think Andrew Garfield in his small role, I thought everyone knew they were going to be in it. I thought there'd be in more of it for them to come kind of. Well, no, they came about halfway, didn't they? Really. I thought he would have maybe more to do. For me, it's probably the landmark movie of the year. As in 2021, that's the year Spider-Man: No Way Home came out with all the Spider-Mans in it. So it'll stick out to me. Righty ho then. So number 2 is Andy's number 3 and my number 1 movie of the year. Mortal Kombat is number 2.
What a film!
I rewatched last night just to make sure is this my best film. I think it's purely because of how much it exceeded my expectations. Like, I thought we had not that long before watched the other film, hadn't we? We just watched Mortal Kombat from the 90s, and I was like, right, I kind of know who these people are. Let's give this a watch, sort of thing. But to be dropped into like an Asian martial arts film for the first half hour, I'm like, okay, this is not what I thought was going with this. And I know the guy, is it Cole Young? I think it was the main character. He got a bit of snash, and everyone's abusing him for he was so dull. I quite liked following his story because I'm quite new to Mortal Kombat, but fight scenes are amazing. And then the final Scorpion Sub-Zero fight near the end is really, really good. And
see, I was always a Sub-Zero guy, and still am. But that film made me sway to Scorpion.
Yeah.
But the next film, when good Sub-Zero comes in, good.
I did like it's kind of open-ended, so they can make more, but it does make sense on its own. Like, they didn't quite get to go to Mortal Kombat. It was all sort of.
I did like that they're they're going with like the game story, not just doing like
Yeah.
the random thing that they did in the original.
I don't know. I'm all for the game story. That means I can get 12 more of these.
Yeah. I think. Oh, and then I mentioned for Josh Lawson as Kano. Kano was like.
Oh yes,
Brilliant. Best
I
Australian.
forgot, he was in Superstore. And
Yes.
I can't watch Superstore without thinking of Kano.
But yeah, that's it's probably. I rewatched it again. It's not great. It's not a brilliant, flawless film by any stretch of the imagination. But I really liked it. No pun intended there. But I very much enjoyed it, and having rewatched it, I'm like, yeah, I could definitely watch this again. So yeah, through sheer expectation exceeding, it wins it for me. So before we get on to our number one movie of the year, honourable mentions. What films you all know because it's on your list and we've not mentioned it yet. So ignore our number one. But what has not been mentioned that you would like to give a quick shout out to?
I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, Mitchell's vs Machines. That was one of my.
I quite like that film.
I was going to put an animated film because I put one in last time, but I thought no, it wasn't top of my list.
No, just 21 was a bad year. It was
I've got June would be up for me, or June.
See, I would say June,
Yeah.
but like once again, I have seen that bit of June in about 5 incarnations. I want the next part. Stop rebooting it. I know what happens now.
I think in the months that have passed since it came out, Black Widow has been nothing but abuse, but I actually quite like Black Widow when it came out. The big CGI falling at the sky scene near the end gets a lot of grief.
Yes.
But outside of that,
Taskmaster did it for me.
Mine's a Taskmaster. I'm actually okay with the entire film. I love what do you call him, David Harbour and all
Yeah.
that. Brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, Taskmaster's just absolutely. She was done the dirty on that one.
and then the one I thought no one else had mentioned, I think it's the only one I've seen. Well, I went to see at the cinema. Those Who Wish Me Dead. Angelina Jolie is part
Yeah,
of
I like that. The fire.
fire jumping in the middle of the woods thing. Actually,
Yeah.
pretty good. It's a sort of you'll catch it on Channel 4 at like I don't know 9 o'clock at night.
It does remind me of like a forest cliffhanger.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my another. I had to have another one that wasn't a reboot or a sequel in here as well. So, yeah.
I'm not sure what year it came out. What's that one with Russell Crowe and the car Road Rage?
That
Unhinged.
was last year.
Unhinged.
That was last year.
That
That was
got announced last year.
Andy's number 4 or something last year. Oh, in fact,
Right.
I got this
Right.
year. It was our number 4 on our list
Right.
last year.
There you
So
go.
yeah, I've actually got a list of movies over here that ones that we haven't mentioned at all. Things like The French Dispatch, well, I wasn't that keen on.
Ish.
Last Night in
Yeah.
Soho.
Yep.
Power of the Dog was big at the Oscars.
Ish.
James Bond, No Time to Die. Nobody mentioned that.
That's because everybody had time to die because it took fucking 4 years for that cunt to come out, so everybody didn't give a shit.
The Last Duel I saw was good, but it's not an enjoyable film to see. And West Side Story was a big one, and then Venom: Let There Be Carnage. No one mentioned.
Oh yeah,
So,
Yeah.
Uh,
it was too short for me that one.
so yeah,
Ah.
none of them are making it to our number 1 slot. And for the second year in a row, it's Chris's number 1 that is also number 1. Because Chris's final number 1 vote swung Borat subsequent movie film to being our best film of 2020. Chris, why don't you tell us what the 10 Point Podcast's number 1 movie of the year is? Andy's number 4, my number 3, your number 1.
Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Any film that I have to fight back the tears, it has to be my top pick. It was. This is how you do a reboot/sequel correctly for me.
In the mold of The Force Awakens, just take the first film and kind of remake it into something
Yeah.
new. Use all the same bits and pieces.
And let's face it, that's 100% why they didn't put that film back in New York. They were like, right, it's the same story. We need to change it. I know, we'll put it in the middle of fucking nowhere. Nobody will expect it. Because that is literally the only difference in this film.
Yeah. Oh, like yeah. With the exception of it's kids instead of like grown men. It's the same storyline, the same villain, and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I think the best bit of casting this year, I think, might be Olivia Wilde as Zool or whatever.
I generally thought they'd got the original person back.
Yeah, she's like absolutely born to play that role. But yeah, really good. Paul Rudd is always Paul Rudd and everything, but it worked very well for him being the sort of, I don't know, hilarious dad for the kids to play off of. It's not actually the
It was
dad.
the last 20 minutes. It got me. I've never been so quiet watching a film before.
Having all of the guys come back and play all the ones who were available and CGI the other one, I was not really actually not expecting it. Like I thought they'd played their bits, because did they all appear beforehand, or was it just
a phone call for Ray, I think.
Yeah.
So
I didn't in the shop. Like, Thingy was in the shop. Aykroyd was in the shop.
Yeah. But I wasn't expecting them to come back and save the day, so I quite enjoyed that they were back in it again. And
I liked the little callback as well. They said, "Are you a god?" And he says, "Yes."
But yeah, looking forward to another one, which I think they can't be too far away from making if they've not already made it.
Yeah, Ernie Hudson's definitely doing it, and it's all set in New York. The new one is the
he's a big businessman now, isn't he?
Yes.
So, any more thoughts then? Is that us on our number one movie of the year?
I think that's it. Not much more to say about it.
Ghostbusters Afterlife 2021. I'm sure everyone's seen it by now, because it was a big movie, and obviously the old everyone loves the olden days and reminiscing. So
that was last year. It was just about nostalgia for me.
Nostalgia 2021. Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, so that's the chronology of our best movie of the year is Borat subsequent movie film.
I forgot that existed.
I know. I thought I saw the list. Oh yeah, that's a thing, isn't it? I saw that the daughter's been casting something, but I can't remember what it was. Anyway,
she's in the New Guardians.
There we go. That's what it was. So that's us. Ghostbusters Afterlife. Go see it. That's our recommendation. Very timely. We gave Chris this time to see everything, because Chris doesn't go to the cinema. So he's seen all the new films now. Next time on your 10 Point Podcast feeds will be the 10 Point Podcast 10 Point Podcast Awards. The Pointies, to make things easier. Celebrating season 5. Usually some booze, usually about 2.5 hours long, of us giggling at ourselves and all this sort of stuff. So there you go.
And I have a prize to give away, and it's amazing.
Okay, okay then. So there you go.
This could be a prize for our listeners.
Stay tuned. You could win a prize. So that'll be at some point within the next 2 or 3 weeks. There'll be a little gap, but at some point on your feeds, the Pointies for season 5 will show up, and we'll see you then on the 10 Point Podcast.